Today, what I'd like to talk to you about is a little bit about some military things that we did most every year. And these usually took place in the spring. Of course, after all the year of going through drills and things like that, and many parades and military classes and things that we had about tactics and things like that, you get up into the LET, as they call it nowadays, or MT1, or MT2, 3, or 4. That's one for each year. You learn different tactical things and how to read a map, how to do compass, how to do places with a compass, and all kind of different things. But two things we did in the spring. One was to us it was called government inspection, known as GI. Today they call it the AFI, which is the annual federal inspection. Believe me, one is not anything like the other. The GI, the government inspection as we knew it, was a 3-day stay by people from the Army that came in here. The first day, they would check records. The second day, they would watch a lot of our drill, and they would go through every room on the campus. They would actually, there'd be maybe 5 or 6 of them on the inspection team, and they would split up, and at least one person would go through every room in the barracks or every room in the school. So we worked awful hard. We started working on the government inspection possibly 2 months ahead of time. Myself, I lived in South Barracks, which had all hardwood floors. And we used to wax, or what we used to call it is red oil, is we used to put on the floor, and we do it until you could see your face in the floor. You could actually do that. I often said, if South Barracks ever caught on fire, with all the oil that was on the floors, it would go up like the dirigible, the Hindenburg. That's what it would look like over there. But the thing is, we worked for months trying to get ready for the government inspection. It was a rifle inspection, we did that. And then of course, the third day, it always ended up with a parade and then a meeting in General Beaver's office that they would discuss what they did and whether they qualified for a honor school with distinction, which is the little gold star that you're allowed to wear on your uniform if you are an honor school with distinction, which we were. But people worked awful hard for that. One funny story I'll tell you about that. When I first came back, I graduated in '61. When I first came back in 1966, my wife and I joined Florida. We came back and joined in Florida. Well, my wife was new to all this stuff, so this was very different for her. So when we came back up this way, our first apartment when we came back to Riverside up here was in West Barracks, which was a barracks that was down in the hole, right where the field house is now. That was West Barracks. So we lived in there, and we had gotten ready. Of course, everybody asked all the faculty officers if they had any extra baggage in their room. You took them in your apartment while they were having inspection, and then they would come back and put it in after you were done. But the thing was, my wife was as nervous as all the kids, because they were running around, getting stuff done, getting this, and then each company, they had the company commander and the TAC officer, or what, there was a military person on campus that was attached to each company, and they were standing down there waiting for the inspection party, and they were trying to make sure everybody was in their room doing what they were supposed to do. And for some reason that day, right outside of our window, there was a little cat, a baby cat, and it was meowing. My wife could hear it, the kids could hear it, and she could hear what the kids were saying, and she made me go outside and get the cat, because the kids said, "You want me to kill it?" I said, no. My wife said, "No, go do something." So I had to go outside and get the cat. But the kids were just mortified that the cat was in the middle of an inspection and that was going on. But we worked awful hard for that, and everybody did, everybody in the school. The military department with the records had to be straight. That was always the first day. The second day, the barracks and drill and ceremonies, all that went. And then the third day we had parade, and then they left. And then we always got notification about 2 weeks later that we went out of school with distinction. That's one of the things that went on very much so in the spring. Now it's called the annual federal inspection, and it's nothing like it used to be. We really don't prepare for it. The only thing they do is come in and check records, and that's what we pass or fail on. And the other thing I want to talk to you about was the bivouacs. Now the bivouacs is like an Army maneuver, and we did that in the spring also. What we did, everybody, afternoon, I think it was Thursday afternoon after school, I guess it was Friday afternoon after school. Friday afternoon after school, we all had and back in those days, the military, the JROTC, actually supplied half tents and things like that, just like the regular Army had. We had backpacks, and you had to learn how to fold the thing up and then fold it over the backpack, and you actually took it, and then you could get two of them together and you could have a tent to stay in. But what we did is what we would do is we'd form up down on, which is now the north parking lot, that was Vaden Field at that time, and then we'd go out like you see in these Army pictures where the Armies are walking on both sides of the road, you know, like that, going down the road. We'd go out onto the lower field, Cunningham down there where we used to have parades, stuff like that. We'd come up the road, then we'd go over by the track, and we go around that way, and then we go up old Lake Werner Road that went into the back, and we go back in. Now one thing, and I don't think we did this but 1 year, Colonel Beaver, A.T. Beaver, Alfred Beaver, which was General Beaver's nephew, he was the SAI, a senior Army instructor, or PMS&T as it was known in my day, Professor of Military Science and Tactics. Somehow, you'd have to know this. Somehow they rented a plane, you know, a biplane, and what they did is they flew over us and threw little sacks of flour out that would hit the ground. You'd have to scatter and run and get in the woods. So that was something we didn't do but that 1 year that I know of. But that was funny. But here comes the plane, scatter! Everybody had to scatter and get in the woods. But anyway, we each company had a designated spot in the woods where they had to camp that night. And then they'd have the food out there, and we'd do that and all that. We had to dig latrines so you could go to the bathroom, because we spent Friday night out in the woods. And then Saturday morning when we got up, each company had different maneuvers that they had to do. Now, this was the kicker. The band was the enemy. And they wore green uniforms. And they would attack each company one time during the night. Well, that got kind of funny. And then the military department, of course, Colonel Beaver, I was talking about it before, they stayed in a big tent. And of course, somehow, every year that tent got ripped down in the middle of the night. But anyway, that's part of the whole thing. But anyway, so every company was assigned a different area. So when it got to be dark, you know, you had to know where they are so you could attack them. Well, what I did, when I was company commander A company, after supper, we went back to the company area, you know, and they'd start attacking people maybe at 10 o'clock, 11 or 12 o'clock at night. Well, I moved my whole company about 400 yards. They couldn't find us. All night they looked for us, they couldn't find us. So I got in trouble for that. But anyway, that's the kind of thing you do. And then at a certain time at night, the military guy that would stay with my company, who happened to be Sergeant Helms in my company, we were laying on an air mattress out in front of the tents. We were actually listening to a transistor radio of the Atlanta Crackers and the New Orleans Pelicans, minor league baseball team. They were playing baseball. But unbeknownst to me, at a certain time, Sergeant Helms, I noticed he had some stuff in a bag sitting next to him there. He had some simulator bombs. They're just like bombs, you know, you throw them and they explode, boom, you know, and like this. So at a certain time, he looked at his watch like this, and he said, heads up, and he pulled the thing and he threw it in my tent, and it blew up, like that. So we were running all over the doggone place. But that's what we did. Then the next day, everybody was assigned a certain task, like to attack a hill or anything like that. And that was a lot of fun. You know, it was a pain to do it, but it was a lot of fun. You were awful glad about noon on Saturday, because that's when everything was over with. And you could go back to your room, take a bath, and stuff like that. A little sidelight to that. I've told you earlier on some of the things we've talked about what the bull ring is. You know, if you get so many demerits during the week, you're on the bull ring. And if you got a demerit, you got to walk 20 minutes for every demerit that you have. So, for some reason that week, I caught 2 neglects of duty. And this is what I remember, and I remember to this day. Every time I got burnt like that, or that's what you call getting burnt, was reported, I learned the reason. They said, you're responsible for everything your company does or fails to do. So anyway, I got stuck on the bull ring. So what I got stuck on the bull ring was Saturday afternoon, instead of sleeping like everybody else was, I was in charge of the other bull ringers to go out and fill up all the latrines, which was a lot of fun, let me tell you. So we had to go cover up all the latrines all over the woods out here. So that was the only time I was ever on the bull ring. And I believe I was coerced. I think they stuck me on there for that reason. So somebody would be out there to supervise all this stuff. But anyway, that's just 2 of the military things we did. And we took an awful lot of pride in parades and things like that.